You see, the
prevent.
great thing about animation is you don't have to worry about physics.
The great part about animation is shut the fuck up, Cal.
Greetings, gumshoes. Today on the Lasercomb podcast, we have a special case in store for you. Today, we are going to be tracking down that devious criminal, Carmen Sandiego. She's at it again, folks.
Freeze! Put down the trench coat. Slowly.
Welcome to episode 47 of the Lasercomb podcast. And if you couldn't guess by that goofy ass little intro that I did, we are talking about a little show called Where on Earth is Carmen Sandiego?
Where on earth is Carmen Sandiego?
Where is Carmen Sandiego? Carmen Sandiego, where on earth can she be? Tell me where is Carmen Sandiego? Carmen Sandiego, where on earth can she be? Where on earth can she be?
That's correct. To differentiate it from the kids' game show, Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego?
Yeah, which I was definitely much more of a fan of as a child, but unfortunately, it's a game show. It doesn't really. It's against the
It
rules.
breaks our rules. Dang
Yeah.
it.
And if we don't follow our own rules, who will?
Well, that probably would have been better to review. But
Uh,
it was for. I'll save what I think about this particular episode.
so today we're talking about episode 32 of Where on Earth is Carmen Sandiego, a Fox Kids television show. The episode was the season premiere of season 4. It was called The Trial of Carmen Sandiego.
Hmm. And the premise of this show, I want to get meta for a moment here. Okay, so the show starts with, by the way, the worst intro for any cartoon ever.
Yeah, the
Like,
uh,
actually.
you'll hear it in this podcast because I've been putting the intros for shows in lately.
Oh, God, is
Terrible
it
theme
bad?
song.
Terrible. No wonder it's
Terrible.
only like 15 seconds. Um, but outside of that, the premise is there's a player, like some teenager or a kid or something like that, sitting at a computer playing Where on Earth is Carmen Sandiego? Carmen Sandiego is aware she's in a video game and she addresses the player sometimes.
Yeah.
And the player playing the video game of the TV show that we're watching, it plays out like a cartoon, which is what we watch.
Right.
And presumably he's playing the brother and sister, Ivy and
I don't think
sorry,
he's playing as them though, because they address the player too.
do,
Because in this very episode, they ask the player to like teleport them to different places.
oh, I thought they were asking the Egon looking AI to
Nope.
teleport them around.
No, it's definitely the player because at one point the two main characters, boy and a girl, brother and sister, the boy can't remember his name, but he actually like asks the player at one point
Okay,
to
okay. I
teleport them.
must have missed that.
I can't remember what they call it something. They don't say like player teleport us. They call it something, but I can't remember what it is. It's like some sort of initialism. Because at first I was really confused about. I'm
I
like, what
thought
the
the
fuck
AI
does that
was
even mean?
archaeologist at first, but he's one of the villains in the episode.
Well, the AI is
Archaeologist.
the AI is the chief, who looks suspiciously like Egon from the real Ghostbusters cartoon.
I watched it with my partner, and they're like, "Is that Egon? Is that Ghostbuster scientist?" And I'm like, "It is Ghostbuster scientist, but more annoying and
Uh,
less smart."
to
Boy, did I
to
hate him.
to the point of almost being actionable, in my opinion. Like, I'm surprised someone didn't sue.
other than the fact he talks like this, it's visually like one
Right.
for one. It's Egon. But do we get Egon's smooth, logical voice? No. We get a voice that I can't even I can't even do the voice. It's annoying. It's all on YouTube. Go search Where on Earth is Carmen Sandiego and try to stomach this like AI. Basically, they have
I'm the chief, and this is how I talk. I talk like a stereotypical guy in a detective movie.
but even faster and even more annoying. It's
That was
kind
pretty
of
good.
like if you yeah, it's kind of like if you took Skeletor and made him tried to make him not evil but more annoying.
I hate Skeletor's voice. I know a lot of people have nostalgia for that He-Man TV show, but fuck, it's bad. I caught I watched reruns of it when I was a little kid because although the show was slightly before my time, it was early 80s.
Yeah.
Back then, like kids shows would air in reruns for like upwards of like a decade after they
And that's
originally
why
aired.
you and I, even though technically the programming slot for us from like 8 to whatever was the 90s, because reruns ran for so long, we kind of also grew up on like 80s cartoons.
Yeah, I'm kind of an interesting age because I was born in 1985. So like I'm to that point, like I'm a 90s kid, so like I got to watch things like, like Mighty Morphin Power Rangers and like Beast Wars and Reboot and stuff like that. But because I was born like right smack in the middle of the 80s, I was seeing reruns of 80s cartoons.
GI Joe,
Inspector
G1
Gadget,
Transformers,
G1
Inspector
Transform.
Gadget,
Yeah, He-Man. So
He-Man. Yeah.
so it was kind of an interesting time. So I'm kind of an 80s kid and a 90s kid.
Hmm. And if you were not cool enough, and you were one of the poors, like I was, you probably also had an Atari in the early 90s instead of a Nintendo.
In the
Uh,
late 80s, yeah, I had an Atari. Not even the good one. Like the Atari 2600 was the good one. I had like an Atari like 5600 or something like that, the shitty one.
with the wooden paneling.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have both. Yeah,
And like
in storage, I have a 2600 and like the wooden paneling one too.
yeah. Um and had a Sega Master System and shit like that. Stuff that was I'm pretty sure I had an Intellivision or a ColecoVision at some point too. Oh, and a Commodore 64.
Oh, there you go.
The big ass fucking white keyboard that you would could hook up to your TV that had like the cassette tape disk drive on it that I could never figure out how to work.
You and everyone else. I forgot about that. Because my dad had that too, and like I never.
I remember
How did that work?
the micro console craze from a few years ago, like when the
Like, oh my god.
NES
Yeah, yeah.
Classic and like the Super Nintendo Classic, Sega Genesis Mini came out. It was kind of
Hmm.
late to the
Hmm.
party, but apparently it's actually really good. Um, I was at a GameStop one day and saw a Commodore 64 micro console that was like $150 or something like that. And I'm like, who the fuck? I looked at it. I'm like, who the fuck would buy this?
I saw an Atari one too, and I'm like, oh, cool. And I like pick it up excitedly, and then I'm like, wait. And I turn it around and look at the games, right? And it's like adventure, warlords,
Pitfall.
Indiana Jones, Pitfall. And I'm like,
Pitfall was hype. I liked Pitfall when I was a kid. It's bad. It's a really fucking bad game to
these
go back to.
you'll set it up, you'll have 15 seconds of nostalgia, and then you'll go, right, I have the last 30 games of better games to play, 30 years of better games to play.
That's like me with my Super Nintendo Classic. I hooked it up excitedly played Super Mario World and Donkey Kong Country for a while. Me and my
Yeah.
partner at the time played two-player Donkey Kong for a bit. They included Star Fox 2 on there, which was previously unreleased, and I really liked the original Star Fox, so I actually played through that because it's only like an hour-long game. It's super fucking easy too. Um, and then I hacked it to put like an extra 100 games, so I played like Maximum Carnage, the Spider-Man game that I fucking loved when I was a
Nice.
kid, and played that for a bit, and a couple of other games here and there. And well, I don't think I've turned the goddamn thing on in like 2 years.
Yeah. Same. Yeah, I got a PS5 and I got my PC, and it's like, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, why?
Yeah, why? But yeah, I went for the hype, the craze for a little bit, and ended up with that mini SNES. And much like, this is actually really relevant. Much like the hype for like, oh yeah, look at all these games that it's loaded with, right? And then like you said, you can mod yours and put way more games on it. I feel, what's the opposite of nostalgia?
Um,
Bad nostalgia? No nostalgia.
Lamentation. I don't know.
I feel that about this. It was very 90s, but like not in any good way. In a way where you could see the beats coming a mile ahead and the plot holes and the whatever, like kids are 10, they're fucking stupid. Just roll with it. We can't afford to write like a new script. This is only like a 22-minute like show. Who the hell cares? So watching and analyzing as an adult, you're like, ooh, like this is almost irredeemably bad.
We definitely have very different takes on this show.
And I'm usually the guy that likes everything.
uh, so episode opens with our two heroes, Ivy and all right, I'm gonna look at what Blondie's name actually
Ivy and
is.
brother.
Ivy and brother, Ivy and bro.
Hmm.
All right, what's his name? Going to the Wikipedia article. Characters. Zach, right?
Zach.
Zach
That's
was
a
such
very
a
90s
I was gonna
kid
say
name.
it was such a '90s kid TV kid name was Zach. So
So how does it start out here? They're tracking Carmen, right?
okay, so the episode starts with our heroes Ivy and Zach in Mexico, and what they figure out is that Carmen Sandiego, our titular arch nemesis,
Hmm.
Carmen Sandiego has discovered a Aztec temple in the incorrect region of Mexico. Now you think this is going to be important somehow, but no, actually, this little plot point
Wait,
gets dropped like a bag of hammers. They even make a point of saying that, hey, this is really weird. Like this is like several hundred miles north of where the Aztec pyramids usually are. So they go there and they find Carmen Sandiego.
this is what I think. I think this was purposefully set up so that who's the stupid judge guy? They all have jokey names, and I like that part.
Judge R.B. Trader.
I think this is a fake temple set up to trap the kids and Carmen, except that we learn, spoilers, like RB Trader is working with Carmen Sandiego.
So Carmen Sandiego seemingly gets kidnapped on top of this or inside of this weird displaced Aztec pyramid by this like futuristic helicopter. She actually
And
calls to the kids
right.
for help, which I found kind of odd. The
They've got
the relationship dynamic between the our heroes and our villain are it's very bizarre to me.
oh, it's bizarre to you. I was going to say, I actually like that. It reminds me of, I couldn't tell you what the trope is, but that kind of the people or the person that are after me are actually my pupils vibe,
Uh,
and they will take over like my legacy when they start to realize that what I'm doing is actually good.
oh, interesting.
And I get like a rivalry slash um mentor vibe from Carmen, because instead of her always being out of reach, like the games or the Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego, she speaks and she's regularly on screen.
Yeah.
And gotta say, the heels, the long black hair, the eyebrows on point. As a kid, I wondered what was underneath that trench coat. It's the mystery that's better.
Absolutely nothing at all.
It's like I'm wearing nothing at all.
That's my vote. But that's interesting, though. I could see Ivy taking up the mantle of the
Right?
hat.
Right? And so, like, because they want to help her, they don't want to condemn her, and that's a part of they want to bring her in like proper justice, which is what this episode is about.
Yeah, they are Acme detectives.
Acme detectives, which we'll get to later, but are apparently
Oh,
recognized
yes, we will.
worldwide. So they go into the temple, the sibling detectives, the Acme detectives, and the blonde Zach, he's idiot. He's tripping all the traps. Oh, don't
Yeah.
step there. Oh, look out. This moonlight, this moonbeam light might trigger this. He triggers every single trap, and his sister saves his ass every single time. He almost
Yeah.
dies like 5 times. And they get in, they're like, geez, what's going on here? Haha. The temple isn't real because it's a trap by RB Trader. So that's what I had pieced together. That's why it's like, that's weird. Why is there an Aztec temple here? And indeed, now in hindsight, it's interesting how she ended up here, because why would she go here?
Right.
So in hindsight now, you could see that this is all a setup to get the kids here. And we get a really long, very weird trial kind of thing.
Okay,
The
so
arbitrator catches them too. He
So
catches all of them.
so after Carmen Sandiego is kidnapped, we find out from the chief, this floating AI Egon head, with
Who's
the
also a hologram sometimes. on their
sometimes, yeah.
watch. He's like, he's bad news. Stay away from RB Trader. I mean it. We'll call for backup. Get out of there, kids. Get out of there.
And so RB Trader, we get a little origin story. RB Trader was once a criminal judge who became so fed up that criminals kept being released from prison that he became a vigilante judge who would kidnap criminals across the world and lock them in a supermax like subterranean prison for all
That
eternity.
nobody else knows about. Yeah.
That the chief even mentions that Acme, the organization that these kids work for, that Acme has heretofore been unable to discover the location of.
I'm like, this guy sounds like a great like Marvel villain.
I actually like this
That's
this
what
villain.
I mean. And indeed, he comes out like Kingpin. He is 11 feet tall, 1,500 pounds. He is like a gigantic man. Well, it's a big show. And he comes out and he's like, order, order. And he's wearing a fucking powdered wig. And I'm like, okay, I love this guy.
And his gavel, every time he has lights on it, so on the bottom, so every time he bangs it, the lights go off,
Yeah.
which is kind of cool. And his judge's desk like rises from the floor. He's cool. I like this villain.
Yeah.
So the kids are put as Carmen Sandiego. So Judge RB Trader is putting Carmen Sandiego on trial for all the crimes she's done, and the kids are brought in to represent her in this like
Yeah.
faux courtroom setting. And so the judge sentences her. He finds her guilty immediately and tells her that he's going to lock her in a prison cell of her choice for the rest of her life.
Oh, that's right. He gives her like 3 options.
He gives her 3
But they're
options.
just like different themed cells, I guess.
And
And
so-
for some reason, Carmen Sandiego's lawyer just pops up.
yeah,
Drops a
he
bunch of legal like books on the.
and the judge doesn't like that, so he like presses a button and the lawyer like falls through the floor, presumably to
Yeah.
this prison area. So the kids are end up taking over as her
Legal
att-
representation.
as her legal representation. Sound legal defense right there. Have like a 19 and a 12-year-old represent you.
Yeah. And probably why RB Trader like condemned
Entertains the,
the
or probably why he even if this wasn't all a ruse, I would say it's probably why he even entertains the idea, because like being represented by like two like a teenager and a teen like is just so laughable that
it's funny, yeah.
I imagine he's probably just like, sure.
And indeed, he's
Go
kind of
ahead.
like, you know what, kids, go ahead. And they're like, we request, and then they're like, Egon, cone of silence. And I'm
Yeah,
like, oh, are we-
literally the cone of silence from Get Smart. I'm like,
and I'm like, oh, okay, we doing
and
that?
they spend so long in this cone of silence,
Feels
like
like
going
5
over
minutes, man.
going over their plan. I just imagine the judge on the outside is probably like, what the fuck is taking these two so long?
Guys, what could you possibly be talking about? So here's gripe number one.
Okay.
Other than this kid is supposed to be a detective and he's like setting off every single trap in this goddamn place. They're going over footage, presumably that the chief, their AI advisor,
Yep.
is giving them, and there's footage of them chasing her on the date that she's accused of stealing the Magna Carta. That's
Right.
RB Trader's whole thing. He's saying, "Hey, you're going away for breaking and entering and stealing the Magna Carta." And she's like, "I didn't." And it's just like, well, unless you can prove that you can, like
So they have to go to this.
could.
They were apparently fighting her on top of the Statue of Liberty, and they have to go to the Statue of Liberty to get a torn piece of her coat, which is as evidence that she was actually there at the time. One, that doesn't prove anything. Two, there's
Thank you.
video footage. Two, there's video footage of her being there. That is much more.
So
much-
Egon has video footage
Yeah.
of them chasing her and her ripping her jacket as she falls and like gets away.
Yeah.
The video evidence could be admissible in court.
Yeah, the torn piece of her
However-
coat doesn't prove anything, because like she could have torn it there. It just proves that she was there at some point, not at that particular moment in time.
Not even that, unless the judge comes with them. 'Cause this is what happens. They go, "Hey, we need 24 hours. We need some time to procure evidence." And arbitrator's like, "Okay, I'll amuse your idea. You have 24 hours." And he bangs his gavel and he releases Carmen Sandiego in shackles to the duo.
That if she breaks out of them, or tries to escape, they'll explode.
Oh, super tech, right? Like
Yeah.
Robotnik tech. Like nobody can get them off. Presumably they're explosive, right? Now, I'm sitting there watching and I'm like, wait, don't they want to catch her? Shouldn't they bring her into Acme and they can like, their scientists can, which by the way, their car can teleport. They have like super tech available to them. They could like diffuse it. But no, they're like, we need to go get that evidence. Come on, Carmen. We're going to New York.
New York City.
At this point, they could have just left, took a strip off of her jacket, walked right back in and been like, see, this strip was from the Statue of Liberty.
Right.
Like, why do you need the physical like piece
When you have video footage.
when
Yeah.
you have video footage? Now, as they go to New York to go and get this, who the hell are these bad guys that show up in jetpacks in a future copter?
Right.
Do you recall that?
Yeah. They kind of reminded me of AIM from Marvel Comics.
Right?
So that's just what I'm going. Presumably they're agents of Vile, VILE,
Okay.
which is the organization that Carmen Sandiego works for.
So they show up and they have jetpacks and a helicopter. They're not trying to thwart the kids. They're thwarted really easily. Like they're knocked into the water somehow.
Yeah.
As Ivy's trying to rappel down the Statue of Liberty's torch to get the evidence, right? The torn piece of red fabric. And she almost gets knocked out, and one of the jetpack guys steals the piece of fabric from her, flies back to the future helicopter, and they just fly away. And I'm like,
Yeah.
what did they steal that's worth
They
like,
stole the physical evidence that they need to exonerate Carmen Sandiego, damn it.
and by the way, the whole time this is all happening, there's all this feedback being like, wow, I should get you kids to represent like me from now on. Wow, you kids, if you ever quit being detectives, you should go into law and all of this stuff. No, this is, this is really dumb. But none of that matters because for some reason, they end up being like, okay, well, we're out of options.
Right.
So what can we do? The only thing we can do is go to where the Magna Carta was stored and find like video evidence from that day that proves that she was never on the scene.
Which really should have been one of their first steps, was checking surveillance footage at the because the Magna Carta is being stored in like the Salisbury Museum or in England, I believe.
Right. And by the way, as they're zipping around in their teleportation car, in one time it like pops up in a fountain. And because Max is like, Zach is like, I want to drive. And Ivy's like, excuse me. He's like, remember, my driving test is next week.
You know why I think you keep calling the kid Max is he looks like Mighty Max.
That's exactly why I keep calling him Max.
He looks like Mighty Max.
Mighty Max had a hat. Wasn't his hat magic? Was it
I can't
something
remember.
like that? Well, there's another show we might watch.
Yeah.
A show made just to sell the toys.
Yeah. That's a themed month of the Lasercomb podcast. That's just half-hour toy commercials. It's just waiting to happen.
Half-hour
By the
toy
way,
commercials, which boy oh boy, is there many handfuls of.
by the way, I actually forgot to mention this at the top of the episode. The reason why we're talking about where on earth is Carmen Sandiego is our patrons over at patreon.com/lasercomb voted on the theme of September of the month for September of 2022, and what they voted on was educational shows.
Yeah.
So here we are.
Yeah, you can be educated in the incorrect way to represent yourself in court.
The show is actually quite educational. Every time
it is. There's little vignettes here and there whenever they're like, oh, New York was founded. Like whenever they travel somewhere, they give you a little spiel that's quite entertaining, or use live action cut footage in it. It's
or if they use a word, like what was it? Subpoena.
Atlatl. Oh, subpoena. They tell you what a subpoena is.
Yeah, which is cool. I really like that.
Oh, right,
and
because they were subpoenaed to show up in
this
that court, in that Aztec court.
yeah.
Atlatl is a keyword because a spear comes out of nowhere, remember, and like lodges itself inside of the car.
Yeah.
And they can't pull it out. And they're like, nobody could have thrown this with enough force to do it. And Egon is like, actually, they could have used an Atlatl. I don't know why I went transatlantic accent there. My good sir. And they learned that early men used to use those
did we ever find
notched rods to toss.
Did we ever find who threw the spear? Did we ever find out?
Just a plot point to introduce what an Atlatl is, so that Zach can use one later on out of like a broken chair leg. Not really how Atlatls had to be like measured to the person's arm that would whatever.
Right.
So
speaking of the car teleporting into a fountain, it teleports into a fountain, and they're like, oh shit, what are we gonna do now?
And Ivy's like, remind me never to let you parallel park.
Oh yeah,
there's like, those 90s quips.
There's this kind of throwaway subplot that Mighty Max is scheduled to go for his road test the following day to get his driver's license.
And I'm like, well, why is this kid even like, he's hurting more than he's helping. But we quickly find out that he's a linguist because when
So,
they're
okay,
going
so
over
I wanted
into
to talk
Rome,
about,
because the trial's technically in Rome, right?
right, the trial's in Rome, and we get a
The
little
police officer.
we get a little explanation that, oh, this makes a degree of sense because modern law is based on ancient Roman law from 2300 years ago or something like that. Um, but yes, the police officer. So they're like, oh, they're like, fuck it, we'll leave the car and we'll just go rent a scooter. Drats, the scooter rental place is closed, and so
Wouldn't you know it?
Mighty Max pulls out his Acme badge, hails a police officer,
Polizia, polizia,
Polizia, riding a motorcycle.
padrone. Yeah.
And he's like, "We're Acme agents. We need to commandeer your motorcycle." And the Polizia is just like, "Sure."
Hey, sure, kids. And so this, like, by the way, he's built like a GI Joe character, got like Aves and everything, right? Gets off and he's like, "Here you go," and I'm like,
I laughed out loud afterward. The cop just
What?
is like, "Okay." Gives
"What
these
authority?"
these two kids who are just like, "We're Acme agents," as they flash their badges, and he's just like, "Oh, sure, take my motorcycle."
I was so like confused, and I was like, "Is that like the FBI? Like, comment that would never work anywhere.
No.
You can't be like RCMP when you're in Germany. I need your car." Be like, I'm the police here. What's the issue?"
Yeah, yeah.
That part was funny, and he's like, "Here you go, kids." Not like, "Oh, hey, what seems to be the issue?" or "How can I help?" Just, "Here's a motorcycle." Doesn't ask if they have a motorcycle license, which, by the way, is fucking different
Yeah.
than a normal license. They just both get on and somehow just know how to ride a motorcycle
Yeah.
effectively.
Uh,
Yeah.
so anyway, so we go to the Salisbury Museum to
Oh, they talk to a guard, right?
yeah, to investigate.
Same shit, by the way. They're like, hey, everything's closed. And they're like, "Officer, Acme detectives." And he's like, "Oh, am I glad to see you?" And I'm like, they're kids. What?
Right? And they're like, "So we're here to investigate the stolen Magna Carta," and he's like, "Ah, but it actually wasn't stolen. We thought that someone was going to steal it, so we put out a fake and we hid the real one." And then and he goes and shows them the real one
For some reason.
And so then Judge
It's just in a closet somewhere.
Judge Dredd like comes out from out of nowhere and is all like, rips his robes off
And he's wearing who is that wrestler with the chainmail?
Scott Steiner.
He's kind of got a Scotty vibe going on, like that cowl thing.
Yeah.
He's wearing chainmail now, I guess. And he's like, "Ha, tricked you."
I'm actually working for Carmen Sandiego. This whole thing was a big elaborate ruse to so she could steal the real Magna Carta.
And her cuffs just like come off.
And so she takes the Magna Carta and they're all like, "See you later, fuckers."
But also archaeologist. And he's like, "And I'm here too." I guess he was a good guy at some point.
Archaeology.
Archaeology, right. And they try to stop that. Ivy tries to, and by the way, the kid's like, "No, like 90s kung fu," right?
Yeah.
And Ivy's thrown across the room, and she breaks, like, I don't know, priceless artifact chair. And they're like, "Oh man, they're getting away." And her getaway van is outside, right? So these three because it's revealed that archaeology and Trader is working for Sandiego, and the three of them get away. And Mighty Max is like, "Huh, or will they?" And they grab one of the priceless spear artifacts that were stolen from its homeland off the wall, and he takes a broken chair leg, and he's like, "Atlatl!" And he just like what that plot point that made no sense earlier in the show. And he whips a spear down with a rope tied to it. It would have broke all forms of aerodynamicy with the rope on the back. But I digress. He whips the spear down. It plunges into the tire. So the spear embeds itself in the van, and they're like, "Haha, now they can't get away through the van." And Ivy action she grabs the cuffs, which is kind of clever, and she like uses it to slide down the now repelling zip line. They kind of made like a zip line thing, and
Yeah.
she's like, "Hi, yeah!" And she like kicks like Traitor or Archaeology in the back or something like that, and takes him down.
Right.
Yeah, and I'm like, okay, so they're action. They got kung fu action, and indeed, Max takes down like Archaeology or whatever, and they're like, "Give it up, like Carmen, you can't get out of here." And because she's in like the big red van, and she like, "No, you'll have to do better if you want to catch me." And again, a very 90s thing. Her van transforms,
Yeah, yeah.
and a smaller like aircraft jet
It
flies out of the front.
it's like the USS Enterprise separating the saucer section.
Oh, I always forget about that. Yeah, or like the tumbler
Oh
breaking
yeah,
apart and the
in the Dark
the
Knight, yeah.
bike.
Man, the first time I saw that in theaters, like I was so fucking hyped because I had been seeing, I was following like the production of that film, and I had been seeing they released tons of like photos of Batman just riding this thing called the Batpod. And I'm like, oh, how are they gonna how are they gonna introduce it? And then like halfway through the movie, like the tumbler gets wrecked, and in
But
a
that front wheel, like,
right, and I just remember like sitting, and I this was the first movie I ever saw in IMAX, by the way. I remember sitting in the theater, and like after the tumbler is like blown to shit, and like inside the cockpit, like the computer is like alarms are going off, damage catastrophic.
oh, and Batman like leans forward
And then
crawls into
Batman
the
leans
space.
forward, and then on the screen it's like ejection mode activated, and I was like, oh shit. And then the one of the wheels starts spinning, and the Batpod launches out. I was so fucking hyped in that moment.
That's
I've
pretty
seen the
hype,
movie
man.
I've seen the movie probably like 30 or 40 times over the years.
Holy shit.
I still get hyped every time I watch
That's
the
hype,
Batpod
man.
ejection sequence.
That's hyped.
I
That-
really
that's
really
a good
like
iconic Batman moment.
I really like The Dark Knight. That movie has aged fantastically.
Oh yeah, it's one of my favorite movies. It is my favorite like superhero movie.
It's a fair choice. It's definitely up there. I don't know if it's number one for me, but it's top five easily. Top three,
Yeah, top,
top three
top
even.
three. Yeah, probably Guardians 1, Dark Knight.
I actually like Guardians Volume 2 more than the first one. I know
I know that's
yeah,
controversial, and we've talked about it before, but like, yeah, we both really like number 2 is so complimentary. It's really good. If you are a person that may has had to that may have grown up with absentee father,
it really strikes a chord.
it strikes a chord with you.
Plus the that movie, much more than the first one. The first one is very much a very plot driven MacGuffin film.
Oh yeah,
Like random object, people are in pursuit of random object. That's what the first one is. The second one is much more of a character piece, and I think that's
It
why
is.
I like it more.
oh definitely. It's allowed to breathe and
And
slow down and develop the characters and indeed their relationships.
yeah, their relationships with one another, and ones you wouldn't expect, like Yondu and Rocket bonding.
Yeah. Also, Yondu, wow, way to make that character interesting.
And
Right?
the end of that movie with the Ravager funeral as father and son by Cat Stevens is playing.
That gets me, man.
It gets me every time,
That gets me in the feels.
especially the part where because Rocket earlier in the movie had kind of had a falling out with them because he had fucked a job up and had stolen a bunch of like batteries or something like that. And as the Ravager funeral is going on, Rocket's has his head hung, and he's like they didn't turn their back on him, no matter how mean he was, or all the bad things he said, or stealing batteries he didn't need. And then Star-Lord is like, it puts his arm around him, and he's like, well, of course not. That moment really gets me.
Hmm. Yeah, and anyways, that's our
Right.
Guardians of the Galaxy and Batman Dark Knight review. Follow us on social.
Yeah, anyway, so the episode's over. Carmen Sandiego
She
flies
gets away in
away
the tumbler and
in her
the air
spaceman.
tumbler. She leans forward and a rocket shoots out.
Dun, dun,
And she
dun, 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 dun.
and Ivy's like, "Come on, hit me. I want you to hit me." And Carmen's like, and just turns at the last minute.
Listeners, me and Cal both worked at Blockbuster when The Dark Knight came out, so
Oh yeah.
I I for a long time I actually had that Blockbuster had the special Dark Knight when it came out on home video, which I think was December of
I still have it.
2008. Yeah, I had mine for a long time. These were like Dark Knight themed Blockbuster shirts. I don't know whatever happened to mine. I kind of lost it somewhere over the
Man,
years.
NX kind of like, when are you gonna grow up? Do you even wear these anymore? Like, guilted me into donating or giving away a lot of those like shirts, and I'm like, fuck, I should never have given any of them
I
away.
still have one Blockbuster shirt. It's
Is
it's
it
just
the
a
rewards?
it is, yeah.
Yes.
uh
Nice.
yeah. Anyway, so yeah, that was Where on Earth is Carmen Sandiego.
She got away. Dang it.
Cal, you just caught an episode of this very educational show. Would you tune in again?
Here's the thing. When I first watched it, I was like, oh, good Lord, is this bad? Now, I can't tell if I like it more because, I'm more forgiving of it and like whatever, or it's just because we make jokes throughout it. And if I associate our review of it and the jokes we make with it with the good times, then it's like, oh yeah, like this was fun. Haha, all the jokes we made. But maybe I shouldn't do that. Maybe I need to remember how I feel about it while I was watching it. And I remember,
I agree.
and thank you. And I thought it was so dumb that these are supposed to be very intelligent, like kids. And they're like, we need to go get this evidence, even though they have video like evidence, and they end up like just helping Carmen Sandiego in the end. It's not great. It's not good. My folks. The spear coming out of nowhere, the inexplicable Aztec like temple in the middle of like Mexico. That never gets explained. No, it's as much as I like the character design. For instance, Ivy, she's got straps around her thighs for some reason. Maybe she needs the extra belts. I don't know why. Maybe it's the weird brother sister relationship that's going on here that seems a little bit off. But apart from the character design, nah, I don't think I would.
I would actually. I found how laughably stupid some of the moments were in the show, like them commandeering a cop's motorcycle. Like I found those really funny and endearing, and just how like mind-bogglingly dumb they are.
That's fair, and I found that mind-bogglingly dumb too. And I'm a fan of cheese. I like that there's this gigantic like lawyer dude named RB Trader.
I really liked the villain in The Judge. I thought it was a good set. He was a good villain. I just wish he was actually I wish he was more of an enemy and more of a presence in the episode. I like how educational the show is. I like it does a really clever thing during the commercial bumpers. It will ask you trivia questions about
I
things
do like that.
that had happened earlier in the episode. Usually just like little word like, oh, where did they say they were going to go? Or like things like that. Think that's really
Where
clever.
was democracy originally started?
Yeah, it's a test.
Ancient Rome.
It's a test to see how much closely kids are paying attention.
Yeah. What ancient tool did man use to hunt mammoths?
Yeah.
Yeah, Lattle. Yeah.
So
I do like that. I'm coming around. It's just maybe I watched it with somebody who was very cynical.
so I actually like I didn't watch the show as a kid. I remember it being on. I remember seeing commercials for it on Fox Kids all the time,
Same.
but I never really watched it much. Um, I I actually quite enjoyed this, and I'm glad this exists. I actually think it's a pretty entertaining piece of educational media.
I'm glad it exists too. I just wish it had been a little. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I differ day to day.
But
Yesterday, ugh. Today, hmm.
but there are some really dumb plot holes in this show, like the
like
the the
like you said,
mysterious
it's like
Atletl.
it's almost like hanging a lantern on something that they don't intend to revisit. Huh, that's weird. Why is there like why even mention that they're in central Mexico
Yeah,
and that there shouldn't be an Aztec temple there?
yeah, because it ends up not really factoring into the plot at all. You
Why not
think with
just
that,
pretend that you're in South Central America or something?
yeah, why not just go to an actual Aztec temple, like where they are actually geographically
I
located?
guess because it was supposed to be a fake, it was supposed to be a setup.
Who threw the spear?
Archaeology, a random it's a video game.
Who
Oh,
who
the
who were
outro title. Remember how like Carmen
I,
like
I was gonna
addresses?
I was
Yeah,
gonna
Carmen addresses and they're like, ha ha ha, better luck next time, player. And then the player types in and you hear a voice, like a boy's voice, be like, huh, I'll get you next time, Carmen. And it only
the,
shows his back as the camera like zooms away from his PC and he's like,
it's so weird that those that framing device is so strange, and the way it's shot is really strange. It's shot in like very like low quality like video. Like it looks like it was shot with
almost
like
like a
a handy
green
cam.
screen. Like
But like
his
when
when
he
his
mo
hand moves. Go
when his
ahead, yeah.
hand moves the mouse, it's like it's almost like the footage was reversed or something.
It's not CG, but the it's from a photo.
It looks like
And
stop motion.
what they did is they cut the picture of his hand from a photo and then just like, used the drag effect
Yeah,
because
it's
his
weird.
hand and arm isn't actually moving. It's almost like CG or stop motion, and I couldn't figure it out. I'm glad you noticed that too. I'm like, what is going on here? And I don't think there's an actual like actor like sitting there because it's weird and still, and when it shows his hands, it's like typing. It's like weird too. I
Yeah.
think it's just from a photograph.
Yeah, and there are times too where the camera is like zooming in, but right, it looks like it's zooming in on a photo. It
On
doesn't
a
look like it
It's
doesn't
not
look
a camera moving closer or using a zoom function. It's just like a photo's coming closer to the screen.
yeah, it's really it's a really strange production choice.
It, yeah, I couldn't understand what they were trying to to do. It's almost unique if it wasn't so ugly to behold. But yeah, the show is what it is, and I appreciate the show, and I'm glad that it existed, but I wouldn't watch it again.
Oh, and I just feel like pointing out that Ivy is voiced by a very young Jennifer Hale in the early days of her career.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, Jennifer Hale is like I've her and Jim Cummings are probably like the most prolific voice actors like living today, in my opinion.
You think
Jennifer
so?
Hale, oh yeah, totally. Jennifer, they've both been in everything.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Like everything you could possibly imagine. Like has had Jim Hale, Jennifer Hale, Jim Cummings, or sometimes even both. I'm sure
Or
they've
both.
appeared in the
Yeah.
same thing many times. Both have hundreds upon hundreds of voice acting credits.
There is some interesting art. Other people seem to remember Ivy as well.
Also, Jennifer Hale, a very attractive lady. Not that that means anything really, but anyway,
Very
whatever.
attractive voice.
Um, yeah, so I would have definitely watched more of this had I actually caught it when I was growing up.
But now we're adults and we don't have time, dang it.
Now we're adults and we don't have time.
We
but
just make empty promises about continuing to watch one of these shows that we never do. No more.
I did actually start watching 12 Monkeys.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
I'm a few episodes in now. I just started watching it the other day. That show is quite good.
I did end up checking out a few extra episodes of that French episode that like was sort of like Reboot.
Oh, right.
It's on Netflix.
We
We've
reviewed
done a lot of
an
these
episode.
shows.
We reviewed an episode. Oh, and I did watch more of Fighting Foodons as well.
That was just great.
Yeah, I watched I think like the entire first season of it.
That was just good show.
Yeah. Anyway, so that was episode 47 of the Lasercomb podcast. If you want to support us, go to patreon.com/lasercomb. And at the single $5 tier, you get bonus preamble audio, commentary tracks, our news and current events show, and you get to pick a show for us to review a random episode of on this very podcast. So if you want to get in on that, go to patreon.com/lasercomb. Follow me on Twitter. I am at Lasercomb. Cal, you are at...
I am on the Twitters as well at NeoCal, NEO_KAL.
We'll be back next week with episode 48 of the Lasercomb podcast, where we will be continuing on with our educational themed shows. And we decided next week that we're going to cover Captain Planet and the Planeteers.
That's right, baby.
So we've gone from geography. You know what I think we should try to do? We should try to find shows that fit into educational shows that fit into different subjects. Like this is very much geography and history.
Right.
Captain Planet is environmentalism.
Yes.
I don't know if we could find like a show about math.
Okay.
Yeah, just a thought.
A math show.
No promises though, people. So to figure out what episode of Captain Planet we're going to be watching, as always, we're going to go to the old trusty random number generator. But first,
this episode of the Lasercomb podcast has been sponsored by Ye Old Number Generator.
I have considered emailing them and telling them, hey, you actually get free promotion. Your website gets free promotion on our show. And they'll be like, how many downloads do you get? And I'll tell them, and then they just won't respond. All right. So Captain Planet had 113 episodes.
Hoo boy.
How long did it run? I read a blurb that said it was the second longest running cartoon of the 90s. Ran until 1996. I definitely had stopped watching it by that point.
I only caught it here or there. I definitely never like week to week.
I remember I was watching it pretty frequently right when I remember when it first premiered, September 1990, so I would have been just about 6. I think I remember watching it all the way to like 92 or 93. Anyway, so 113 episodes. One random numbers between 113 and here we go.
Where it stops.
Bow. 83.
83.
That is season 4, episode 18. High stakes. Steak is in the meat. Loot and Plunder is behind a plan to ruin an environmental sustainable ranching operation. The Planeteers call Captain Planet, who defeats Plunder, and Plunder is hauled off to jail again. Spoilers. High stakes. Why is steak spelled that way?
Because it's an environmental sustainable ranching operation. It's faux meat.
Huh.
Yeah.
Well, you remember the high meat craze a couple of years ago, where people were eating like 6-month-old like rancid meat because it was making them like trip balls?
No.
That was the thing a few years ago.
Oh,
I remember that.
okay.
I remember it being talked about on a YouTube show that I follow, Internet Today.
High meat. I feel like I missed out.
It's pretty vile looking. I don't recommend Googling pictures of it.
Oh, I certainly won't.
Anyway, we'll be back next week with episode 48. 48? The LaserCon Podcast. Until then, I've been The Siege, one of your hosts.
And I have allergies, and I've been NeoCal.
Thanks for listening. We will boo up you next week.
Boo up.
Well, she sneaks around the world from Maryland to Carolina. She's a sticky fingered filter from Berlin down to Belize. She'll take you for a ride on the boat to China. Tell me where in the world is
Carmen Sandiego.
there's only South Korea, thinking on it, cause crying come from the Red Sea to Greenland, till they're singing the blues. Or will they never Arkansas still? The beat come from a jungle. Tell me where in the world is
Carmen Sandiego.
she go from Nashville to Norway, but air to Zimbabwe, Chicago to Czechoslovakia and back. Well, she'll ransack Pakistan and Afghanistan and Scandinavia, then just stick 'em up down under and go big pocket bird. She was missing misdemeanor when she stole the beans from Lima. Tell me where in the world is
Carmen Sandiego.
tell me where in the world. Come on, tell me where can she be? Botswana to Thailand, Milan, via Amsterdam, Mali to Bali, Ohio. Oh, oh, Warren. Oh, Warren. Oh, Warren. Oh, Warren. Ooh, the cheese. Ooh, the cheese. Oh, but it makes us think, yeah. But it makes us think, oh. But it makes us think, yeah. But it makes us think, Monday through Friday at 5. She flies around the globe and children from every nation. She's a double-dealing diva with a taste for thievery. Her itinerary's loaded with moving violations. Tell me where in the world is
Carmen Sandiego.
Tell me where in the world is Carmen Sandiego. Tell me where in the world is Carmen Sandiego.